All right, we will get started. Welcome into now. Yes, we are recording. Excellent. So we're recording this for those people who can't make it. We're going to jump in today and have a look at our second part of the workshop. So part two is looking at gems today. So your personal assistant, your agents you can build, and we'll go through what they are, how they work, and then give you. No problem, Mark. No problem at all. I know it's exam time. No problem. So look, this one will give you an example of what gems are, how they work, and then I'll share some instructions with you on how to create them, and then give you some to copy and paste in to have a little play. I also have a doc with a whole pile of instructions on them on how to make them. A whole lot of pre-made ones I have either created or borrowed from lots of different people around the place. So when we think about gems, gems are an agent, if you like, or a customized AI agent. And the thing about a gem is it's designed to do exactly the same thing every single time. Okay, so last time we had a look at Gemini and we looked at how we can create prompts, how we can make things. And that's the idea of having something that is a one-off, or I want this thing right now. Whereas a gem is the same thing that over and over and over again. Okay, so that's the big difference between the two. This is something that we want to pre-train, and this is something that will behave the same way every time. And we got some examples on here of how people use these things. We have things like, lesson planning is the top one, or differentiation of resources as well around that lesson space. Personalization of learning, so practice quizzes. Again, differentiation can be done through here, applying different learning styles, all those sorts of things. Then you got the third one down being a research assistant. So it's that idea of how do we give it a hold of guidelines and then send it to do some stuff for us. Then the last one, streamlining communication. So tailored announcements for parents, staff, alumni, students. I've talked to principals who use this for writing their principal's speech, or people writing the newsletter articles about things. So lots of different ways you can create these. And when we talk about gems, we also think about that idea that you're going to give it some instructions, just like you'll give an assistant some instructions. Okay, so it is that idea of think about this as if you're telling someone exactly what to do, and you gave them instructions once and they went away and did it the same way every single time, which obviously doesn't happen with a human, but that's what we can do with a gem. Okay, so that's what we're thinking about today. Now, gems are in the no-cost version of Gemini. They are now shareable. They never used to be shareable. So you had to do this thing, which I've done for you already, of putting instructions on a doc and then sharing the doc and copying and pasting. But you can now share a gem, either with students and with staff. You can also share them outside of your school domain. So say you're working across a cluster of schools, someone might be someone who looks after literacy. They could create one and share it off with other people to use. Okay. So when you create a gem, they look kind of like the one on the screen. There is a learning coach one there, which we'll have a look at in a minute. And when we're thinking about creating these ourselves, there's kind of a list down that left-hand side to think about. Very similar to what we looked at when we were doing the prompting workshop. So give the gem a persona. You are an expert in, or a person who creates this, or you are someone who creates lesson plans, or you are my report writing buddy. We will talk about report writing, but I'll just leave that with everyone because that's obviously another conversation to have inside the school. What is the task? Some examples here. I want you to search for, locate, provide, summarize, offer suggestions, give feedback on. What is the context you want? So you are a teacher in a high school or primary school or intermediate school in New Zealand using New Zealand curriculum. You are a 13-year-old biology student. How do you want the gem to behave? Give it that context. What format do you want? Do you want short bullet points? Do you want a lesson outline? Do you want something using the depth of knowledge thinking framework? Do you want something based on the solo taxonomy? So give it that format. Then you could say things like include plain summaries, or avoid using excessive jargon, or make it very simple for someone who doesn't understand, or make this for an advanced learner who's 17 years old. So give it that, include those things at the end. Now you can also point it directly to a website. So you might say, here is a page from Tahurangi, for instance, use this as reference. Or here is a specific resource I'm going to give you. It might be a rubric. It might be a guideline for creating something. It might be a template of information. So you can give the gem stuff as well. Okay, so that's kind of a step we can go through. I will share these slides out with us later on back via the calendar invitation. So that's what we're going to start to think about when we think about how these things work. Okay, we're going to give them those personas. Now, I'm just going to jump over to Gemini. So feel free to jump over to Gemini if you want to have a little look around. I'll just make sure I'm using the correct account again. This tab. Jump over to Gemini. You may notice as a brand new updated Gemini, we actually see your school logo beside your username. So you can tell really quickly that you're using the correct account here. So when we're inside of Gemini, the prompt has that, sorry, the model has actually shifted down into the prompt window now. So that's where my model lives. I can choose between Flash or Pro. Flash is perfectly fine for most things you do. Pro gives you that deeper thinking and more reasoning involved in there. So I'm just going to make sure I'm on Flash. If I go up to the left here, I'm going to open my menu and my gems live here. Now you'll notice that I've got a couple sitting up here. Those are the recent ones I've used. Okay, so if I just go explore gems, so feel free to jump into Gemini and have a little click through there. Now your screen may look different to mine because these are the ones I have created or have used. You notice I've got a little bit infectious about using gems. So we have some pre-made ones up the top here. Now, if you just click into the one that's called the Learning Coach, this is a pre-made gem. Now the 3 dots, if we click on that, means I can make a copy of that for myself, and I can also jump in and change it. So I might want to give this some really specific information about the students at my school or my staff or the context we're learning about. But you can actually just click that and go make a copy, and then you can start playing with it. But if I just click into my Learning Coach, see, I've actually just made a copy of myself there for myself. There you go. So when I go click those 3 dots and make a copy, it actually makes a copy there. And here is all the instructions. There's lots of instructions in this one. Now, don't get too freaked out about the amount of instructions that are in here. I'll explain that in a moment. The instructions can be very, very simple, but I've made a little copy of my Learning Coach. I'm going to jump back now. Oops, sorry. Go up and save it. All right, so here I am back on our page. On the left-hand side is where you find your gems. So if I click into the Learning Coach gem, it will start up. And it gives me some examples here of what I can use it for. Okay, so there's one there, how does photosynthesis work? Could be the beginning. But I might just go, teach me about about gravity. Teach me about gravity. So I've just asked the gem to help me to learn something. Okay. Now here's a plan. It's going to go through here. How does that sound? Ready to dive into the world. So the gem is asking me some things. I'm going to go, does that sound good? Ready to dive in. Yes, I am a, let's go, 12-year-old student in New Zealand. We do that. 12 years old student, fantastic. Okay, so now you notice that the gem is slightly changing its output. Okay, so the conversation is different, the theme is different. Now, when you create your gem, you might tell it straight away that this is for a 12, 13, 15, 17-year-old learner. So you can actually give it that instruction right at the beginning. Okay. So what a gem will do is go backwards or forwards, and we just have that conversation with it. Okay. So that's how a gem works. And when we go to our explore gems on the left, we've got them up the top there, the learning coach, because that's the one I used recently, the storybook, the chess champ, the Women's World Cup. These are a whole lot of pre-made ones that are sitting here. Down the bottom here are the ones that I have created myself, or if I did my 3 dots, sorry, not that one, if I did my 3 dots here, and I go make a copy, and I go save, it will save that for me in my gems area there. Okay, so I just made a copy of that. If I go back to my left-hand side, you'll see there it is, the one I just made the copy of. Okay, so if you want to make a copy of the learning coach, hit the 3 dots, go copy, and it will appear down here in my gems now. Okay, so that's what the little home screen looks like. We've got, if you don't see that menu, hit those 3 lines to slide it out. You've got your gems there, and it will take you into the gem manager. Now, these ones I've got down here that I've made a copy of, they're actually going to live inside my drive in a gems folder. So these behave quite differently now. Now, if I have a look at my learning coach, which is the one I made a copy of, there's 3 things here. There's the 3 dots. I hit that. You can see again, I can make another copy if I want, or I can delete, or I can start chatting with it. If I hit the pencil, that is my edit button. Okay, so that's where I go to edit the gem. So if someone shares one with you, or you make a copy of another one, you can hit that pencil and you can edit. The last one here is the share button. So if I click on share, what it will do is it will get that file ready to share for me, and it'll pop up. If you're sharing, can you collaborate on the same gem? No, you can't, Rachel. It's a great question. They actually make your own copy of the same one. So you'd have to make one, then share it with someone else. And no, you can't collaborate on them at the moment. So I've hit my share button, and you see it is exactly the same as a sharing dialog you would see if you share any drive file. Okay. Now you'll notice that because of my school settings, I have no sharing switched on by default. Drop it down, Steve Smith College, or anyone with a link. So I can choose how I share that. The other thing about this is, if I make a gem and I give it a document to use as its knowledge, it will also ask you if you want to share that document. Okay, so if you have a doc with a whole lot of information on it, you can actually give it to the gem to use as knowledge. But it will only share it if it's available to be shared. Okay, so this sharing won't break your school's sharing settings. All right. So those are the basic homepage that we see there. Now, one that I will share with you now is the storybook gem. Now, this one you can't make a copy of, unfortunately, but I can pin that so it will stay up on my screen. And the storybook gem is one that's designed to create a storybook. Now, when I was using an earlier gem, I actually built a gem to help me write a story. And I'll show you that one in a moment. But what this did is this is a gem that will write a story for me. So if I go write a story about Steve who loves surfing and fishing in New Zealand. Okay. Now, while I'm typing, if you want to go and find the storybook gem, feel free to do that. So write a story about Steve who loves surfing and fishing in New Zealand. This is a story for an 8-year-old. Make it in the style of, let's go, Pixar movies. I'm thinking The Simpsons. I wonder if The Simpsons work. I don't know. Let's find out. In the style of The Simpsons. I wonder if we'll do that because it's copyright. We'll give it a go. Okay, anyway, so the storybook gem is a nice little gem that lets you create stories. So it will take a little bit of time because what it's doing now is it's writing me a story and it's creating me a whole lot of images as well. So while it's creating, if you want to go over to your gems to explore gems, jump into there, hit that storybook gem, and then pop in a little story of your own while I'm waiting for mine to create. Now, this one is not shareable at the moment. Whatever you create stays on your account. But it's a really great way of creating a story. Now, the story could be one that's in the style of a decodable text, for instance, or it could be a story about appropriate behavior. It could be a story for some neurodiverse students who want to read a story about themselves. So you can actually drop some information about the student in there. So you could go write a story about Steve and make it in the style, Steve looks like this, for instance. And you could get them to create the images. So Steve's surf fishing fiasco. Fantastic, sounds good. So here we go. It is in the style of Simpsons. Brilliant. So it actually did it. So that was the information I gave it. And it's written a little book for me here. Of Waikiki Nui, where the clouds look like giant sheep and the chippy shop sold deep fried kiwi fruit with a man named Steve. Apparently that's what New Zealand is like. So this is a little, look at that, plum kahawai, not bad. So this has written me a little story. Now, when I've created my story, there's a couple of different ways to use it. I can go up here to the printer and I can actually print this as a PDF. Or I can go over to listen and I can get it to read it to me.
Steve loved two things more than anything, reeling in a plump kahawai and catching the perfect glassy wave. He often wondered, why not do both? His neighbor, Pee-Pee, who was 8 and already knew everything, watched him from the porch swing. That is a truly terrible idea, Steve, she stated, licking a melt.
That's what the storybook gem is, and it has a whole of that pre-built stuff inside there. So you can use that storybook gem to create stories. Can you copy information from an existing text into it, Richard? Great question. Yes, you can. So you definitely can do that, depending on how much you want to put in there, obviously, depending on copyright. But yes, you can give it some really specific instructions. And I'll show you an example of one that I've given it some really specific instructions. So this gem basically goes through the story of me surfing and fishing. There we go. Brilliant. Love it. So that's the little storybook gem. It's a really cool little experiment we've done so far. But let me jump back over to the one I did recently, and I will show you one that I created. Now, the one you're having a look at here is one that comes from a gem that I created. So I created a gem to write a story for me. And I then dropped the information here. So here we go. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8. Okay. So I actually dropped the text I wanted in there. Now this is a decodable, decodable style focusing on the WH sound. Okay, so lots of WHs in here if I want my students to be practicing that. So yes, you can definitely drop really specific stuff into it to get a really specific book out at the end. So this one has been created with my Reading Resource Creator gem. Okay, so I will jump back over to my gems and I'll show you what that one looks like. Let me go back to, sometimes inside of that one you're going to jump out. Oh, right. So if I go back to my gems, there's one down here. Where's it gone? My Reading Resource Creator. Okay. Can you add photos? Yes, you can give it some photos as well and ask it to incorporate those images. So here's my Reading Resource Creator. I'm going to go over to my pencil and show you the instructions for this one. So I click the pencil. Here are my instructions. And I've got the instructions for this on the doc that I'll share with you. So inside of my gem, when I'm creating my gem, I've given it a name. I've dropped an emoji in there just because I like to do that because it makes it a bit easier for me to find all the different things. I can give it a description in here. And down here are my instructions. Now you notice I've started out by saying you are an expert literacy coach and phonics specialist who excels at creating instructional materials aligned with the science of reading. So that is its specific instructions on how I want it to behave. Your goal is to help me collaboratively write a custom, engaging and accessible decodable text for my student. You must follow this exact interaction flow. Number 1, begin our conversation with the exact text. So that's what I wanted to say when I start the process. Number 2, gather some context. After I provide the target skill, you must ask one clarifying question at a time until you have enough information to write the first draft. Okay? Then it'll be about the target phonics skills and specific graphemes. The general level of students appropriate to the New Zealand curriculum for English can be found at there. So I've given it a specific part of Tahurangi where the curriculum for English sits on that version. Then ask for any known student interests. Before writing, you must always ask the final question, is there anything else I should know? Because that might be the thing where in my class I've got this, or this student is this. So I can give it a really specific set of information. Then briefly name the pedagogical approach you used. Okay, so there's some suggestions in there. Point 4, iterate until perfect. So those are the instructions I gave it. And you can just grab those instructions from a doc I'll share with you in a moment and create this. Now, if you wanted to give it a really specific instruction, you can drop that in here as well. Or if you wanted it to use a rubric or some examples of ones you already use, you can either drop them in here as a link, or you can jump down the bottom here to the knowledge. Okay. So you'll see here. Yep, all good, Amy. Just come back to the calendar invitation and the recording will be there later on. So I've said ground all tasks in New Zealand curriculum, making sure that I say that is exactly where I want you to come from. Or down the bottom, I can hit the plus and I can either upload a file or I can add a file from my drive. So those are what we call knowledge. If that is a doc, and I share this gem, if that doc is not shared, it won't share with it. Okay? So if you do have something you want to put in here in knowledge and you're going to share it with someone else, you've got to give them permission to that file as well. If it's a PDF, it's no drama. Okay, so just to go through that again, we've got our the name for a gem at the top, our description, then our instructions. And I'm speaking to this as if, no problem, Jillian, and if it is as if it is, hey, you are this, and this is how you'll behave. Then I give it the flow. Then we're ready to go. Okay. So when I have a look at this, if I just, now what I generally say is you generally have to wake these things up. So I just go, hi. I'm previewing it over on the right-hand side here. Hi, I'm here to help you create the perfect decodable text for your students. My goal. So remember, that's what I told it to start with. So what is the phonics skill you're targeting with this text? If I go, I'm just going to go, what's a phonics skill we're going to go for? Who wants to suggest a phonics skill for me to drop in? First person in the chat. Anyone? I'll just go, what if I go contractions? Let's see if it'll do anything for that. Anemic awareness, that sounds brilliant. Okay. All right, so I beat you to it, apologies there. So I see contractions are a great skill to target. Make sure I'm focusing on the right ones. Which specific contractions are your students currently working on? For example, I'm going to do N apostrophe T. And and apostrophe LL. Let's do that. So I'm just giving it a really basic instructions based on what it understands. Perfect. We'll focus on NT and apostrophe LL. What general year level are these? I'm going to say year 4. Remembering that I told the gem to use that specific reference from Tauranga and the New Zealand curriculum down there, which gives you that learning area. Now, I could have said level whatever. So there you go. It's actually said, great, looks like I'll be at level 2 of the New Zealand curriculum. To make this text really engaging, what are some of their interests? They like sailing and rugby. Let's do that. So this is a really nice way that we can help to localize or to specify for some of our kids. What sort of length or format are you after? I'm just going to go I'm going to go 8 sentences. Let's do that. Sentences, not sentences. There we go. So I'm giving it all its instructions. It's confirming the details. 8 sentences it is. Any high frequency words they're struggling with? Nope. That's fine to go. So the more instructions you give it and the more steps you give it, the more things will happen in this piece here. Okay. So now it's creating me a narrative, making that little story. And here we go. We'll have a big rugby game today. I hope he doesn't run in the class. Ben say he'll be the captain of the team. He can't kick the ball, but he runs fast. After the game, we'll go sailing. Dad's boat isn't big, but it will zip. I'll pull the ropes up. So there we go. We've got a couple of simple little sentences there that we can use for that. Now, if we want it longer, we tell it to make it longer. Okay? So a really simple little couple of things. Now, what I could do is I could actually just grab that text there and then drop it into the storybook creator, and it will write me a story based on those instructions or based on that text. So that is how we create a gem, and that is what the output looks like. So we get to the end now. Now down the bottom here, you'll notice it's also got, just like in Gemini, the share and export. So I could just send that straight out to docs. Okay. So if I wanted to use that story in a doc, I can just drop it straight out to docs. Okay. What I did before with that last storybook gem was I grabbed my story out of here and popped it in there. Okay. So that's what it looks like to create one. What I'll do is I'll jump back over to my presentation. Yep. definitely, Rachel. I'll do that right now. So I'll go. So if I go, that's all good. That's all working. I don't need to update anything there. If I go back to my gems, I'm going to click my little back button here. I've got my gems here. I've scrolled down to my reading resource creator. So this gem started as a completely blank one. I just started making this one up from scratch. So I will give you a link to the instructions, which you can then tailor this one for yourself. So there is my reading resource creator. I go over here, I click share. That will then open my share dialog, and I can drop someone's name in there and share this directly with them. They'll get a notification. So if I just put a person in there, it's going to send it off. Say I want to send it to Hine, one of my students, or I can send it to other me. Then I just drop a name in there, just like sharing any document you want. If you've got a group, you can drop them in there as well. Okay. Or you can also just copy the link. So that's how we share them. Okay. How to delete all the stuff on the left? Delete all the stuff on the left you don't want. You go into your settings and you go into your delete there, Rachel, if it's switched on for your school. So there's my Gems front page. Share, edit, and our options to make a copy over there as well. Let me jump back over to this, and we'll jump forward. Now, another one I've created, and this one is a pretty huge one. Now, I don't expect you to read everything that is on the page. Oh, apologies. Cindy and Linda were sitting there in the waiting room for ages. Sorry about that. Now, this one here is my Shakespeare Oracle. Now, apologies to any English teachers on the call, but I didn't do too well at English. I didn't understand it very well. If I had this to use, I probably would have spent a lot more time trying to understand Shakespeare. So what I did here was I actually borrowed a lot of this text from another gem. And if we look at the top half of this, it gives me a couple of different instructions. There's my note there. So this top bit up here, let me go back over, go back over to here. Turn my laser pointer back on again. There we go. So this bit over here is all my instructions. Then engage the user by doing this. Offer some exploration. So these are steps I'm getting it to do. Then explain language. And I've just noticed down here, I've actually started to give it some ways to behave. Encourage some further questions. Maintain an enthusiastic and engaging tone. And here's this bottom bit is actually an example. So I've written an example so the gem knows how to behave. So the top 2/3, this bit, is all my instructions. And the bottom bit is an example. So what you can do is you can go through and start to just bullet point it. And then you can start to expand on those bullet points. You can test them. If it doesn't work well, you go back, you edit, you add some more instructions. Okay? So that's one for a Shakespeare Oracle. And it helps me to understand Shakespeare. So I've said at the top here, so you're a knowledgeable guide to the captivating world of William Shakespeare. Okay, whether you're a newcomer or already familiar, here to help. This interaction should be aimed at 16-year-old students in New Zealand. So I was kind of thinking of your level 1, level 2 English class, build one of these, share it with them, and they've got a little Shakespeare expert to talk to. Okay, so that's the Shakespeare Oracle, which I will share with you in a moment. All right, if you go to that link there, now let me just grab that link and drop it into the chat. It will actually take you to a doc with a whole lot of examples on them, some of which I have borrowed. I won't say stolen, I'll say borrowed, because the people who created them said I could borrow them. And any that weren't specifically shareable, I have given a reference to. So if you go to that link in the chat, bit.ly SSG share, Steve Smith Gem share, that's what that one means. It will take you to the doc that looks like this. So that is those detailed instructions that we had a look at the very beginning, okay? Then there's an example down here. You are a for K-12 education, or you could put a specific word in there or a specific year. The audience is teachers, families, admins, students, other teachers, families, admins, other students. You follow policies, use clear language, and maintain student privacy, all that sort of stuff. What is my goal? What is my secondary goal? These are some kind of prompts you can use to help you to build that gem. So what are the required behaviors? Do you want them to reference specific uploaded documents? Do you want them to give actionable specific advice? What are any input types? So you might say, I will give you bullet points. You will turn them into a paragraph. And that's exactly what the report writer gem does. Are there any questions you're going to ask? Are there any uploaded? So you might say the user will upload a PDF or will upload a doc or will paste in some text. So say we wanted to build one that gave real quick feedback on a draft of writing. You could do that for your first draft, for instance. The context about the year level, any constraints, keep it to 350 words. Do not use excessive jargon. Speak as though you are not an expert in this topic. Stay within your role, use professional language, cite sources, and then you can say, what is the output you want? Do you want the output to be bullet points, to be a paragraph, to be a sheet, to be a table? Think about what the output you want is. Down the left-hand side are a whole bunch of examples. My cooking coach was the very first one I created. Audio could be if it has a link to it. I haven't tried MP3s yet. That's a great question. Now, my cooking coach, these are the instructions I gave. And if you see me present on this before, I demo this one. That's the entire instructions I built a gem with that actually creates you a meal plan for the night. So that's my cooking coach. Another similar one I created was a garden helper. And those are the instructions I gave it. Start with a greeting. Kia ora, my budding horticulturalist. And then I say the gem is a horticulturalist background, natural lawns and native plants, such as blah, blah, blah. This is what they take into account. Then I'll say, this is what I want you to do. Greet the user, ask the location, ask the size, give advice. So those are really, really simple ones. Then we get into the ones that are more complex. Here is a writing coach. And now that one is quite long. Okay. So that could be a writing coach that you share with learners. I've got an inquiry learning coach. So that's more about, so this is one that my buddy Sam Gibson created. You see, I've thanked him at the top there. So that's about building inquiry learning. Now, how you use these is I go over to Gemini. So let's share this tab. So this is what you want to do if you want to use one of those examples. I'll use Sam's inquiry learning coach there. I'm going to go new gem. And I'm going to open up my area to create a gem. Okay. Then I'm going to jump back to my doc. So here's my doc with Sam Gibson's inquiry learning coach. I'm going to highlight the instructions here. Do that. And pop back over to my gem. In the instructions, simply paste them in there. Okay. So I've pasted in those instructions. I am going to give it a name. You can ask Gemini to convert your chat into instructions for a gem, Rachel. But generally, you start as a gem. You don't convert one over to the other. So this one is, this is Sam's inquiry, spell it correctly, learning coach. Okay, creates inquiries. Let's do that. So I've given it a name, a description. Here's where I pasted in those instructions. Then up the top, I just go save. And that's how I create a gem from one that has been shared with me. And I will test it. So now it's going to open. Down the bottom, I'll go hi. What it's doing now, first time they run, they take a little bit of time just to grab all the instructions, and then it will kick into that gem. All right. And you notice that this one's actually showing me all the thinking. That's because I just realized I am on 2.5 Pro. I'm going to change that back to Flash. Doesn't make a lot of difference, but Pro just shows you the thinking. Got ready to take us some inquiry and design to get ball rolling. What learning goals are you mulling over, and what's the age group and general vibe of your students? So I'm going to go social studies. Actually, no, just go current events. For year 10 in New Zealand. Let's do that. All right, so year 10 students around 40, 50 years old, a level 5 New Zealand curriculum, which is perfect time. So there we go, potential inquiry topics for year 10. So now it's given me that bunch of inquiry topics based on all the instructions I gave it. Now you notice, because it's come out of the table, I can actually flick that straight out to sheets as well. Scroll down, framework design thinking. Let's do that. So those are a bunch of instructions that have, because of the instructions I gave it, it's now come out with the output we gave it there. Okay. So if I go back over to my instruction sheet, you can see it's gone ask about the learning goals, the ages, utilize design thinking, suggest ways to smoothly include the standards of New Zealand curriculum, offer tips for engagement, and then the overall tone. So that was all those steps we went through. So when you're thinking about designing a gem, what do you want it to do? What are the steps you want it to follow? What is a specific outcome you want? And what are the specific inputs you want the user to give it as well? So Shakespeare's Bard, here is my Shakespeare one. Now this one was quite a long one to create, but I wanted it to behave really, really specifically. So I just kept adding to it, okay? I've got one here, which is a new teacher support system. Now that was borrowed from ed technology specialists. And there are quite a few that share their gem instructions out there as well you can grab. The next one down here is a report writing helper, which was borrowed with a bunch of people I was working with. So you'll notice here it's saying you're going to help me write student reports. Your only job is to do this. Use this tone shown in the examples I provided. So in the knowledge, I'm going to put a couple of my old reports in there to blend that tone. If anything's unclear, do this. If you're unsure, check. I might write things bluntly. Your goal is to help me quickly and efficiently turn rough notes into accurate, parent appropriate tutor comments. So this is not just going write a report, write a report, write a report. It's going, here are 20 bullet points about my student, turn it into this outcome. Okay, so that's an example of one there. I've got the cybersecurity advisor. So that's how to set up a cybersecurity advisor for your school, looking at a bunch of documents that are specifically about settings. There is Shakespeare's Oracle there, which I think I might have, got it twice. I've got a social studies current events helper. I've got an organic chemistry study pal, which just looks at a whole lot of NZQA references. I haven't built one out completely. I've got the decodable creator. So that one there is the one I used before to write that little decodable story. Now you might want to grab that and tailor it a bit more to the students you're working with. Or you might want to take out a couple of steps. So down the left-hand side is all those examples, okay, of instructions for creating a gem. Grab the instructions, drop them in to your gem into that instruction area, which is how you create them. Okay. All right. I'm going to jump back across to my slides. Here we are. So some more examples we've got here. So there is the storybook gem. That's the one we just had a look at as well. A fantastic little tool to have a play with, either to use if you have little people in your life or to share with your team as well. This one comes from the link at the top there. 4 steps on how to create these. Be really specific and clear. Give it a persona. Set some constraints and some format. So provide the answers in a table, or limit your response to 100 words, or make it a 3-page essay. Number 4, iterate and refine. Now, your first lot of instructions you do won't be perfect. So you can go back in, click edit, add some more information. Okay. So this slide really helps you to understand how to create them. But think about that. What do you want it to do? How do you want it to act? What is the input you want to give it? What is the output you want to get as well? When I have a look at some of those personas, thinking about this sort of thing through here, right? And the last link I'm going to share with you is this one. Eric Kurtz was out here in New Zealand recently at our Google Summit, and he shared this link. Let me grab this and drop it into our chat. Go back over to my window. So many windows open. Oh my goodness, where's it gone? Here it is. So in our chat, I'll just drop in that little link for us. So that one there, edugems.ai, will take you to a page from Eric Kurtz. And on that page, he has a gigantic list of gems for you to use or for you to edit. So on here, he has a tutorial video to watch. Go through here. So there are playing devil's advocate, learn a scaffold. So these are a whole pile of gems that he has created that you can use. Who truth and lie game, worksheets, professional tasks. So how to write a class newsletter, emailed appearance. So this is a link to a whole lot of things that Eric has created. He freely shares everything, so I'm not stealing everything with him, but I did want to share that link with you so you can use those. All right, let's jump back over to my presentation. I'll get out of that page because I am using my Chrome lens. There we go. So that's that last little page there. Previous page was our best practices for creating them. Then we had that link to those examples I gave you on the doc. So a great way to start is to create a really, really simple one. Start to think about, I want you to be this. It could be it could be you might want to make a gem that tells dad jokes, and you give it a specific context, a specific area, a specific age group that the dad jokes are for. Get it to create that, off you go, have a play. But having a look at Eric's, he does have some amazing examples. On my doc, I have some of my examples plus some I stole. If you want to use the cooking coach, it is always a favorite. And yeah, that one is so simple and was a very small amount of information that went in. So that's a little look at Gems. We are up to the 45 minutes. I will share the recording for this. I'll chuck it on YouTube and then drop a link into our calendar invitation. I will also put the slides in there, and those slides have all the links in them we've used today. The best way to start playing with Gems is just to open the instructions and start to give it some instructions of how you want it to behave. Save it, try it, go back and iterate. Or jump into the doc, grab one of them, drop it in, see how it works, hit the pencil, go back and edit it and just make it your own. That's a really great way to start as well. If you want to look for some online, just do a Google search for Google Gem instructions for teachers. Okay. How do we share with students? Great question. Okay. What we can do is we can grab the share and we can, let me jump over to my share tab. So we can grab the share and simply share them like any other Drive file. Okay. You can do that. Now, you do have to have Gemini turned on for students, okay? So that's the next big conversation you'd have to have if you wanted to use these as students, but have a think about that for next year, perhaps. The other way you can do this is you can actually drop them into Classroom if you use Google Classroom. So I'll quickly show you how that looks. So I'm going to jump over to this, make sure I'm on my school account. I'm going to jump into my classroom. Now, if I go into my demo class here, my social science class, when I'm on my classwork tab of Classroom, I can actually go hit my create. Is there an age limit to use for students? No, there is not. So years 0 to 13 is available for Gemini for students, and they get the student version of Gemini, not the adult version of Gemini. So there's a whole lot of extra guardrails in there. So if I go create, you notice here there is Notebook LM and there is Gem. So I can click Gem and I can then go select an existing one. It'll have a look at the gems that I have. It'll do a quick read of my gems. And if I go, I want my students to have the Shakespeare Oracle, attach it, and it's actually inside of Classroom. And there it is right there, ready to go. Okay. So you see it sitting there in my classroom. I'm going to give some instructions. So just like you give any assignment inside a Classroom, you can now give a Notebook LM and you can give a Gemini Gem. You do have to have it turned on for students for them to be able to use this. Okay. So that is the next conversation you need to have about this. So that's how you can share them. Either share direct link, and that could go with, it was on by default for students. No, not necessarily, not if it wasn't first on. So what you've got here is the ability to share either with that direct link or via Classroom, both for teachers and students. You know, if you have all your teachers in a classroom for PD, you can share the gems in there, or you can direct share them with the link. Okay. So that's how we share them, either in Classroom or direct, or drop the directions into a doc like I have and shared with you as well. All right. If there are any more questions, feel free to ask them now. We will finish up. If you're all done, you don't have a question, feel free to drop out. If you want to stick around and ask a question, you can do that. I will jump in now and stop the recording. So if you want to ask some questions, you can do that as well. Up to here, all of my controls have moved. Let's jump down here and stop the recording. All right, folks.